Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotara Sata Shishima Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotara Sata Shishima Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Srila Prabhupada Ki Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Om Vishnu Krishna Krishna Bhutana Shiva Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So continuing Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 28, Kapila's Instructions on Devotional Service, Text 39. Yata putrachcha vitachcha Kritan martya pratiyate Apyatma vena himmatad Dehade purushastata Yata putrachcha vitachcha Pritan martya pratiyate Apyatmat vena bimatad Dehade purushastata Yata putrachcha vitachcha Pritan martya pratiyate Apyatmat vena bimatad Dehade purushastata Yata putrachcha vitachcha Pritan martya pratiyate Apyatmat vena bimatad Dehade purushastata Yata as Putrat from a son Cha and Vitat from wealth Cha also Pritak differently Martya a mortal man Pratiyate is understood Api even Atmatvena by nature Abhimatat for which one has affection Deha ade from his material body senses and mind Purusha the liberated soul Tata similarly. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Because of great affection for family and wealth, one accepts a son and some money as his own. And due to affection for the material body, one thinks that it is his. But actually, as one can understand that his family and wealth are different from him, the liberated soul can understand that he and his body are not the same. Purport. The status of real knowledge is explained in this verse. There are many children, but we accept some children as our sons and daughters because of our affection for them, although we know very well that these children are different from us. Similarly, because of great affection for money, we accept some amount of wealth in the bank as ours. In the same way, we claim that the body is ours because of affection for it. I say that it is my body, I then extend that possessive concept and say, it is my hand, my leg, and further, it is my bank balance, my son, my daughter. But actually, I know that the son and the money are separate from me. It is the same with the body. I am separate from my body. It is a question of understanding, and the proper understanding is called pratibuddha. By obtaining knowledge in devotional service or Krishna consciousness, one can become a liberated soul. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This understanding of the difference between the body and the self is something that we need to hear again and again. And Srila Prabhupada does us that great service by reminding us again and again that we are not these material bodies. And it's a really great example, actually. Just as we can understand that our family and our wealth are different from us, we would never say that my child is me. We wouldn't say that. We don't say that our bank balance, that's me. We can see that it's different. We understand that it's different. And in the same way, we should be able to understand that the body is different. And that this is real knowledge. And this is the knowledge, the beginning of all knowledge, that the spiritual master opens our eyes. Yes, that the spiritual master, with that torch of knowledge, he opens our eyes from the darkness of ignorance. What is that ignorance? That ignorance is thinking that we are these bodies. So this is the great service that the spiritual master does. He opens our eyes, frees us from this ignorance. And this, again and again, is what we hear. And it's so essential. It can never be underestimated. When Lord Chaitanya himself would say, I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Shudra. I'm not any of these things. I'm not a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, or a sannyasi. What am I? Gopi Bhartu Padakamalaya, Dasa Dasa Anudas. I am simply the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, who is the dearest of the gopis. That is our real situation. That is our real self. That is our real position. But because of this affection, again, it's such a great example. Because of affection for our children, we feel so connected to them. Because of our affection for wealth, then we feel that very connected to that as well. So because of affection for our material body, then we identify so strongly with it. It's comfortable, feels like me. You know, my whole experience is through this thing. I'm comfortable within it. Comfortable with my mind, even though it's sometimes, difficult, but I'm comfortable with that. And we're so comfortable and affectionate toward it. When we look in the mirror and we think, this is me, that affection is so strong. So that bondage is very strong. Whenever there is affection, there is a strong bond. And this is something that we are meant to give to Krishna. Develop our affection for Krishna. Then our bond to Krishna is very strong, very tight. Without affection, then it stays on the theoretical platform. And that bond is not forged so strongly. We want our real affection for Krishna to come out so that we cannot help but think of him. We cannot help but want to serve him. When that affection is so great, then naturally you want to do so much for the beloved. It's a natural outpouring from the self. And that is very wanted. That's what Krishna wants. Krishna wants our affection. So we are meant to transform our affection for this temporary body to Krishna, to our real self, to actually developing affection for the soul proper and the Supreme Soul, Krishna. Now today I wanted to share one really wonderful pastime from Srimad Bhagavatam. that has really great instructions about the body and about our affection for the body and about what the body is supposed to be used for actually. And it has to do with the demon Vritrasura from the 6th Canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm going to go through a little bit from the 6th Canto, chapter 9, if you want to follow, chapter 9 and 10. Now, I'll give a little background about the appearance of Vritrasura. If we remember from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vritrasura, yes, he's a demon, but he's also a great devotee. So this pastime is very rich, it's very full with real spiritual understanding. Now, the demigods, they were having some problems. Indra had neglected his spiritual master, Brihaspati, and this caused great problems for the demigods. Now, because Indra was having a moment where he was absorbed in pride, he actually failed to offer respect to his spiritual master when his spiritual master entered into the assembly. And because of that offense, Brihaspati could understand Indra is a bit absorbed in his own power and is in a prideful situation. So Brihaspati then actually disappeared. He left the vision of the demigods, and without their spiritual master present there, then the demigods were overpowered by the demons. So the demigods were in a difficult situation, and they prayed to the Supreme Lord. Out of fear, they prayed to the Supreme Lord for protection. And the Supreme Lord Vishnu gave them the advice that you go to another Brahmana, Vishvarup, and ask him to be your spiritual master, because without the shelter of the spiritual master, you have no hope, you have no power. And we understand that in our lives as well, how that happens. We need the shelter of the spiritual master in order to make any advancement. So the demigods, without the shelter of their spiritual master, they were in a very precarious situation. So the Lord instructed them to go to Vishvarup. He also gave them very nice instructions there about how a pure devotee would never actually approach him to ask for something for themselves, as the demigods were doing. They were afraid, they needed... But in any case, the Lord is very affectionate toward the demigods because they are his devotees. So he gave them that advice to go to Vishvarup. But the Lord actually advised them, now you need to tolerate Vishvarup's tendency towards the demons, because Vishvarup's, from his father's side, are associated with the demigods, and from his mother's side are associated with the demons. So he had a little bit of affection there, also for the demons. So what was happening was, in the sacrificial offerings that Vishvarup was doing on behalf of the demigods, he was offering so many oblations to the demigods. He was also offering some oblations to the demons on the side, without the knowledge of the demigods. So when Indra became aware of this, Indra felt angry at Vishvarup, and he cut off his heads. Vishvarup had 3 heads. Indra cut off his heads. And then also he suffers the reaction for that, for the killing of a Brahmana. And it was Vishvarup's father, Twashta, who was very upset at the killing of his son, and he summoned a great demon from the fire. He offered mantras to the fire. He chanted the mantras slightly incorrectly. And as a result, Vritrasura came from the fire. There's a great description of Vritrasura, which I'm going to read because it's really cool. It's from text 17 of the 9th chapter of the 6th canto. Like arrows released in the 4 directions, the demon's body grew day after day. Tall and blackish, he appeared like a burnt hill and was as lustrous as a bright array of clouds in the evening. The hair on the demon's body and his beard and moustache were the colour of melted copper, and his eyes were piercing like the midday sun. He appeared unconquerable, as if he were holding the 3 worlds on the point of his blazing trident. Dancing and shouting with a loud voice, he made the entire surface of the earth tremble, as if from an earthquake. As he yawned again and again, he seemed to be trying to swallow the whole sky with his mouth, which was as deep as a cave. He seemed to be licking up all the stars in the sky with his tongue and eating the entire universe with his long, sharp teeth. Seeing this gigantic demon, everyone in great fear ran here and there in all directions. So this is the appearance of Vritrasura. Now, again, the demigods became very afraid at the appearance of Vritrasura. And again, they prayed to the Lord for protection. Oh my gosh, please protect us from this all-devouring demon. How will we overcome him? And the Lord replied with very specific instructions. And I'll read one small part of his reply. This is again in the 9th chapter, text 51. O Indra, all good fortune unto you. I advise you to approach the exalted saint, Dadichi. He has become very accomplished in knowledge, vows and austerity, and his body is very strong. Go ask him for his body without delay. This is where it relates to today's class. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport there that everyone in this material world, from Lord Brahma down to the ant, is eager to keep his body comfortable. A pure devotee may also be comfortable, but he's not eager for such a benediction. Since Madhavan, the King of Heaven, still aspired for a comfortable bodily situation, Lord Vishnu advised him to ask Dadyancha for his body, which was very strong due to his knowledge, vows and austerity. Now, because of the spiritual strength of Dadichi and his chanting of the Narayan Kavacha mantra, his body had become so strong. So the Lord advises Indra to go ask him for his body, and from the bones of his body prepare a thunderbolt, and with that thunderbolt he will be able to kill Vritrasura. So then they approach. Okay, this is very nice. So they approach Dadichi, and on seeing the Indra approaching, Dadichi, he says to them, he has a bit of a joke with them, because he's a self-realized soul, very spiritually strong personality, and it describes that he smiles and has a little joke with them. This is in the beginning of the 10th chapter of the 6th canto. And he says to them, "O elevated demigods, at the time of death, severe, unbearable pain takes away the consciousness of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Don't you know about this pain? In this material world, every living entity is very much addicted to his material body, struggling to keep his body forever. Everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all of his possessions. Therefore, who would be prepared to deliver his body to anyone, even if it were demanded by Lord Vishnu?" So he's speaking in this way to inspire the demigods to speak back to him about religious principles. But he's explaining our situation, yes? Everyone in this material world, we're very much attached to our body. We want to protect it. Who wants to just give up their body in that way? And then the demigods reply. Very pertinent spiritual instructions, actually, about what the body is meant for. What are we meant to use our body for? Now, the demigods say to him that people who are so advanced like you, what can't such pious souls give for the service of others? Yes? That for the service of others they can give up everything, including their body. And Dadichi, he replies that although my body is very dear to me, I will give it up for better purposes, because I know that I may leave today or tomorrow anyway. It's like, how do we know how much time I have left in my body? But if my body can be of service to others, then I will give it up. This is a very amazing instruction, amazing quality. And Srila Prabhupada, in the next purport, he he really brings it alight that this is our duty as well. As members of the Krishna Consciousness Society, this is our duty, to give up our body in the service of others. But what does that mean? So, Didichi, he says, O demigods, one who has no compassion for humanity in its suffering, and does not sacrifice his impermanent body for the higher causes of religious principles or eternal glory, is certainly pitied, even by the immovable beings. That this is the higher principle, out of compassion, that we want to help the suffering humanity. And this was the demigods' request, because they were suffering so much because of the appearance of Vritrasura. By Didichi giving his body, they would become free from the suffering. So in the same way that principle applies to us, we may not, need to physically give up this body, but the same principle applies, that out of compassion for the suffering humanity, we should make a sacrifice. And this is what Srila Prabhupada talks about in the purport. And he describes in the purport how Lord Chaitanya gave up his young wife, his very affectionate mother, and at the age of 24 took sannyas for a higher purpose. And Srila Prabhupada says this is for every first-class human being. For the deliverance of all the fallen souls of the world, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and left home when he was only 24 years old. And then he also talks about the example of the Goswamis, who left their comfortable lives as ministers and joined Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, and then just accepted loincloths, slept underneath different trees. We know from the lives of the 6 Goswamis, very renounced. They gave up their bodily pleasures, they gave up their bodily identification, affection, and they simply used their body in the service of the suffering humanity. So Srila Prabhupada, I'll read this last little part of his purport. And he says, similarly, everyone else with a materially comfortable condition in this world should join the Krishna consciousness movement to elevate the fallen souls. The words Bhuta Dayaya, Maya Mrigam, Dayata Pesitam, and Dina Ganesha Kao Karunaya all convey the same sense. They are very significant words for those interested in elevating human society to a proper understanding of life. One should join the Krishna consciousness movement, following the examples of such great personalities as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 6 Goswamis, and before them, the great sage Didichi. Instead of wasting one's life for temporary bodily comforts, one should always be prepared to give up one's life for better causes. After all, the body will be destroyed. Therefore, one should sacrifice it for the glory of distributing religious principles throughout the world. So, that is a principle that we all can apply. And Srila Prabhupada is asking us to apply that principle in our life. And we can see the wonderful examples of devotees in our Krishna Consciousness Society who have given up their lives in the service of their spiritual master, in the service of the suffering humanity. So, as we understand, this is something that comes from realization, from having that real affection for Krishna, understanding, and as we read in today's verse, understand this real knowledge, pratibuddha, that I am not this body, I am spirit soul. As spirit soul, my whole existence is to serve the Lord. With that real conviction and realization, which of course comes gradually with our experience and dedication, then this should become more and more prominent in our mind. We don't want to waste our life on temporary material bodily comforts. Yeah? We want to give our life for a higher purpose. In that mood of Didichi, not that we have to, try and make thunderbolts from our bones, but that we are prepared for the suffering of humanity. We are prepared to undergo sacrifice in our life for a higher purpose. That we are willing, we're want to become paradukha dukhi, yes, that we feel the suffering of others as our own suffering and we want to do something about that. So whether that means, sacrificing some comfort to go out onto the street when it's cold and go on Harinam, or try and distribute some books, or give a lecture when you don't feel very confident, or in any way, make the sacrifice and serve Krishna on the altar, serve in the kitchen. We want to sacrifice our comfort for the service of Krishna in that mood that we want to try and help the suffering humanity. And that is, that is actually our line. You see, all our previous spiritual masters, that is their mood. Srila Prabhupada, that was his mood. He gave everything. Gave everything he had in the service of others. So that is our lineage, and that is our also our obligation, our duty to the level that our spiritual realization allows us to have that capacity. Then we should be able to make sacrifice in the service of others for the suffering of humanity. And in that way we become very freed from affection and attachment to our own bodily comforts. When we give our energy in Krishna's service, for Krishna's pleasure, making that sacrifice for him, then Krishna gives us that realization within the heart. Okay, I think I'll stop there. I really like this pastime. Vritrasura is one of my favorite pastimes from the Bhagavatam, because we see afterwards he speaks such amazing philosophy to Indra. So after Dadichi gives up his body and they make the thunderbolt, Indra takes the thunderbolt, right, I'm going to be able to kill Vritrasura. But he has a great battle with Vritrasura. A great battle. And Vritrasura is so powerful that he actually knocks that thunderbolt from Indra's hand and he overpowers him. And then what happens? Vritrasura stands there and says, pick up your thunderbolt. Why are you... Because Indra was shaking. He was, oh my gosh, I'm being overpowered by this demon. And he lost all of his enthusiasm for the fight. And Vritrasura says, pick up your thunderbolt, do your duty. You are meant to kill me. You kill me, I'm going back to Godhead. You have to stay here in this material world. Because as we know, Vritrasura is a great devotee. Anyway, so it's a very exciting pastime. And this pastime, with that little pastime within it with Dadichi, is full of instruction.
Yes, the old false ego, ahankara, is such an insurmountable thing. But it's only by its process that we can overcome it. There's no other way of overcoming this illusion that we are these bodies. So we just have to apply ourselves to the process and we'll get the realizations. They do come. So it's a whole very wonderful process. We're all on different levels. We just have to be very honest where we're at, not try and jump ahead. Because
Simple
act of devotion like that is immeasurable, really. So we just have to keep with faith, studying the Bhagavad Gita, like Srila Bhagavatam, it's telling us again and again and again. We're not these bodies, so we just have to keep hearing it.
Yes. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you.
Setting by example, right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.